Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm a mom who recently stumbled upon a horrifying truth, the barbaric practice of selling girls' virginity. Imagine your daughter being treated as a commodity, her innocence stolen, her future shattered. This isn't a horror movie, it's a terrifying reality for countless girls around the world. It's a parent's worst nightmare, happening right now, under the veil of silence and indifference. This horrific practice isn't confined to remote corners of the world. It's happening globally, often next door. Young girls, often from impoverished backgrounds, are lured with false promises of a better life. They are trapped, their bodies sold, their spirits crushed. Poverty and cultural norms rooted in misogyny perpetuate this cycle of abuse. Today, I want to share something deeply disturbing that has shaken me to my core. Like many of you, I had a vague idea that terrible things happen in the world, but it wasn't until I met a young woman named Amina that the harsh reality truly hit me. One day, while volunteering at a shelter, I met Amina. She stood out to me because of the quiet strength she exuded, despite the sadness in her eyes. As we got to know each other, she began to share her story, a story that has haunted me ever since. Amina grew up in a small village in Cambodia. Her family, like many others, was struggling to make ends meet. One evening, a well-dressed man visited their home and offered her parents a significant amount of money in exchange for something that should never be for sale, her virginity. Under immense pressure and the lure of financial relief, her parents agreed. Amina, at just 14 years old, was sold to a wealthy businessman in the city. She was taken away, innocent and terrified, to face a life she hadn't chosen. Her story didn't end there, though. Amazingly, Amina found the strength to escape her captors, and with the help of volunteers, she made it to America. This is a global issue. We have a moral obligation to speak up and fight for these silenced girls. We must break the silence, challenge cultural norms, and demand justice. Empower these girls with education and opportunities. Stand together as a global community and say, "No more. This ends now." As a parent, learning about this practice feels like a punch to the gut. The thought of a young girl losing her dignity and future is unbearable. You are haunted by their faces, their eyes pleading for help. Amidst the sorrow and anger, there is a spark of determination to raise your voice and demand change. Our mission is to safeguard our children. The idea of a child being seen as a commodity is sickening. The pain is visceral, a wound that refuses to heal. This torment fuels a fire to make a difference, to shine a light on this dark corner of humanity. The mind rebels against imagining the unthinkable, yet as a parent, you must face it. Imagine your daughter, her trust shattered, her body violated. This is the reality for countless girls around the world. In imagining the unthinkable, you find a renewed sense of purpose to act and protect these girls. Empathy connects our hearts to the suffering of others. Place yourself in the shoes of these young girls and their families. Empathy transforms outrage into action, compelling us to move beyond passive sympathy. It's about creating a global community that stands against exploitation, valuing every child's right to a safe and dignified life. The emotional turmoil of learning about this practice is not something that can be easily set aside. As a parent, this drive for change is fueled by a deep-seated love and a fierce desire to protect all children. It's a call to action that cannot be ignored. We must challenge the cultural and economic conditions that allow the selling of girls' virginity to thrive. Change also begins at home. We must raise them to value themselves and others beyond outdated notions of purity and worth. Together, we can turn our outrage into action, our sorrow into strength, and our determination into lasting change. In the heart of Cambodia, the sale of girls' virginity is a dark underworld that preys on the innocent. Here, the dream of a better life is a cruel illusion. Families, desperate for survival, often fall victim to traffickers who promise their daughters education and employment, only to deliver them into unimaginable horrors. Picture a young girl, no older than your own child, filled with hope as she steps out of her village. She believes she's heading towards a brighter future, but instead, she's led into a room where her innocence is auctioned to the highest bidder. The betrayal is complete and absolute. Her dreams are shattered in an instant, replaced by a lifetime of trauma. The intermediaries in this vile trade are master manipulators. They exploit the dreams and desperation of these young girls and their families. Parents, who are often blinded by the hope of a better future for their children, unknowingly become part of this horrendous cycle. The cultural emphasis on female virginity as a marker of purity and value further exacerbates the situation, turning these young girls into mere commodities. The aftermath of such exploitation is devastating. These girls are left with deep physical and emotional scars. Their trust is betrayed, their innocence stolen, and their future irreparably damaged. The society that should protect them instead perpetuates their suffering, normalizing this gross violation of human rights. It is a grim reality that demands our outrage and our action. Thailand dreams deferred. Thailand, a land known for its vibrant culture and stunning landscapes, hides a grim secret. In its rural heartlands, the sale of girls' virginity is a harsh reality, driven by economic hardship and cultural norms. Families living in abject poverty often see this as a necessary sacrifice, a way to alleviate their financial burdens. In these impoverished villages, daughters are seen as less valuable than sons, and the sale of their virginity is viewed as a means to an end. Girls are sent to cities like Bangkok with promises of jobs or education, only to find themselves trapped in brothels. Their dreams of a better life quickly turn into a nightmare as they are stripped of their dignity and forced into the sex trade. Once in the city, these girls face unimaginable horrors. The brothels, often run by ruthless individuals, operate with impunity, shielded by corruption and societal indifference. The girls, now reduced to objects of desire, are subjected to continuous abuse and exploitation. Their identities are erased, and their futures are stolen. Cultural norms in Thailand, which place a high value on female virginity, further entrench this practice. The societal pressure to remain pure until marriage creates a market for virgin girls, fueling this abhorrent trade. The victims, too afraid and too broken to speak out, suffer in silence. Their cries are drowned by a society that turns a blind eye to their plight. India childhood stolen. India, a nation of contrasts with its rich history and rapid modernization, harbors dark practices rooted in tradition and economic desperation. In certain communities, the sale of girls' virginity is intertwined with cultural and financial factors. Here, child marriages are common, driven by the desire to ensure virgin brides and secure substantial dowries. In these regions, girls as young as 10 are betrothed, their virginity a prized asset. The dowry system, deeply rooted in tradition, dictates the terms of these marriages. Families, desperate to secure a good match for their daughters, may go to extreme lengths, including selling their virginal status to the highest bidder. This practice is more than a transaction. It is a gross violation of their fundamental rights. The economic desperation of these families cannot be overstated. In areas where poverty is rampant and opportunities are scarce, the dowry system becomes a vicious cycle. Parents, often with multiple children to support, see this as their only option. The girls, viewed as economic burdens, are sacrificed on the altar of tradition and financial necessity. The psychological toll on these young brides is immense. They are thrust into adulthood before they even have a chance to experience childhood. Their dreams, aspirations, and autonomy are stripped away, leaving them with a lifetime of trauma. The societal expectation to adhere to these norms leaves little room for dissent, trapping them in a cycle of exploitation and silence. Niger, cultural chains. In Niger, the sale of girls' virginity is driven by deeply ingrained cultural values and economic desperation. These auctions are often conducted away from the public eye, shrouded in secrecy and cultural acceptance. The buyers, often affluent men, view this transaction as a status symbol. The trauma of such an experience leaves deep psychological scars, haunting these girls for the rest of their lives. As global citizens, it is our duty to stand against such atrocities and fight for a world where every girl is valued and protected. Afghanistan, debt and despair. In Afghanistan, selling girls' virginity is linked to settling family debts. Young girls are promised in marriage, expected to remain virgins. This can lead to the sale of their virginity to the highest bidder. Desperation drives families to unimaginable sacrifices. Girls are thrust into exploitation and abuse, their bodies commodified, futures sacrificed. The impact is profound, stripping them of innocence and autonomy. The trauma leaves deep psychological scars. Cultural norms and economic factors perpetuate this practice. Poverty and limited opportunities drive families to this. Desperation to survive overrides moral implications. These girls have little hope of escape. As global citizens, we must stand against such atrocities. The sale of girls' virginity demands our outrage and action. Together, we can make a difference, turning sorrow into strength. The time for passive sympathy is over. We must transform our outrage into action. The abhorrent practice of selling girls' virginity requires a global response. It's not enough to feel disgusted or saddened. We must take concrete steps to end this inhumanity. This means demanding action from our leaders, supporting organizations that fight trafficking, and educating ourselves and others about the realities of this issue. Every small action contributes to a larger movement for change. Whether it's donating to a cause, spreading awareness, or participating in advocacy efforts, our collective efforts can make a difference. We owe it to these girls, to ourselves, and to future generations to fight for a world where every child can live free from fear and exploitation. Change also begins at home. We must teach our children about respect, consent, and equality. We must raise them to value themselves and others beyond outdated notions of purity and worth. By instilling these values, we can help break the cycle of exploitation and build a future where no child is seen as a commodity. Finally, we must not let the enormity of the problem paralyze us. Every small action contributes to a larger movement for change. Our collective efforts can make a difference. We owe it to these girls, to ourselves, and to future generations to fight for a world where every child can live free from fear and exploitation. The drive for change is a powerful force. It is born out of love, empathy, and a commitment to justice. Together, we can turn our outrage into action, our sorrow into strength, and our determination into lasting change. This fight is far from over, but with each step we take, we move closer to a world where every child is safe, valued, and free. We must demand better from our leaders, our communities, and ourselves. We must challenge the cultural and economic conditions that allow the selling of girls' virginity to thrive. This means advocating for policies that protect children, supporting organizations that fight trafficking, and educating ourselves and others about the realities of this issue. By fostering empathy, we build a collective force strong enough to challenge and dismantle the structures that allow such practices to persist. It's about creating a global community that stands together against exploitation, that values every child's right to a safe and dignified life. Empathy is the first step towards justice, and it is a step we must all be willing to take. Together we can make a difference. We can create a future where every girl is free to pursue her dreams, where her worth is recognized, and her rights are protected. This is our mission, our call to action. For the sake of these girls, and for the future of our world, we must stand united and say, no more. This ends now. The fight against selling girls' virginity demands a unified effort from every corner of the globe. We must be the catalysts for change. Each of us has a role in transforming outrage into action, raise our voices, hold leaders accountable, and support initiatives. Empathy and education are our greatest tools. Teach respect, consent, and equality to lay the foundation for a better future. Remain steadfast in our commitment to this cause. With each step, we move closer to a world where every girl is free. In unity, we find strength.